First here at 5, Portland's gun violence epidemic is to blame for the first homicide of the year in the Rose City. Thank you for joining us. I'm Laurel Porter. The victim of the deadly shooting at a Northeast Portland gas station has been identified as an employee at the business. Let's bring in Mike Benner from outside Portland Police Headquarters downtown tonight. Mike, any word on a motive here?
Not yet, Laurel. Detectives are keeping pretty quiet about that. They're also not saying much about a suspect description. However, we know the victim is 24-year-old Amado Santos. He meant a lot to the people in the area of the shooting, and they are disturbed by his death.
The 76 gas station at Northeast 102nd and Gleason was closed Tuesday. We found flowers and candles at the main entrance. This just hours after a man identified as an employee was gunned down on the property.
I'm not really sure.
Josh Arney is in disbelief over the death of his coworker, who goes by the name Nacho. Detectives say around 2:45 Monday afternoon, officers and medics responded to the gas station on reports that someone had been shot. They found Nacho and rushed him to the hospital, where he later died.
Never really had this happen to one of my close brothers/friends. I've never really had that happen.
Unfortunately, others have. And for proof, all you have to do is look to what happened in 2022. We saw a record 96 homicides in Portland, many of those due to gun violence. Portland Police Chief Chuck Lavelle addressed the epidemic late last week at a breakfast sponsored by the Portland Business Alliance.
There are a lot of guns on the streets. We're seeing guns in places where we typically haven't. I think the fact that the courts were essentially shut down for 2 years, too, I think played a role in it as well. There were people who would have been probably under some type of pretrial supervision or post-trial supervision or something that just wasn't happening as well. So we had people on the streets who were, committing violent crimes.
It's unclear if that theory can explain Monday's homicide, the first in Portland this year. What is clear is that Nacho's death leaves a void for family and friends who must now find a way to carry on in the wake of tragedy.
I'm really lost with it.
I can tell you we spoke to a number of people who did not want to go on camera but feel the same way. Again, this is the first homicide in Portland in 2023, and to provide some context, by January 17th of last year, 5 people had been killed in Portland. Laurel.
Thank you, Mike. Turning to politics now, and a big day at the Oregon State Capitol. It's the start of this year's legislative session. Blair Best has been following what's on the agenda this time around. And Blair, both Democrats and Republicans are pledging to work together, tackling some of the state's biggest issues.
Yeah, that's right, Laurel. There was a sense of commonality today coming from both the House and the Senate. Republicans and Democrats talked of not letting party lines get in the way of the major problems facing Oregonians, such as homelessness, housing, behavioral health, and public safety. And they did admit that they have a long way to go. Leaders from the House and Senate both outlined their ambitious legislative agendas today. One included a plan to improve state laws to make it easier to keep people housed and expand construction of affordable housing. They also talked of making changes to some of the state's more controversial laws, including Measure 110, which decriminalizes small amounts of hard drugs. Now, senators acknowledge that law needs adjustments, especially with the rise in certain street drugs like fentanyl. But again, stressing the importance of working together to make those changes.
And in the face of these difficulties, our state government should be solving problems for you and every Oregonian. But we do have to do it together. These challenges aren't Democratic or Republican challenges. They impact all of us.
I believe our 25 members bring a fresh perspective to the legislature. My expectation is this session will be one of true bipartisan collaboration, where the voice of the minority party is heard and not just pushed aside or ignored as it has been in the past.
Education, public safety, and the environment were the other hot topics today. Improving and attracting the workforce in each of these sectors was a big part of that conversation.
We're working to build communities where every person feels safe. It's why we're investing in good paying jobs and training and clean environment, world-class schools for our students and teachers, and ensuring our government is efficient and effective.
So last week, the governor introduced a $130 million package to get 1,200 homeless people off the streets within a year. House leaders say they plan to take up investment packages within the first 60 days of this session, which will last for the next 6 months. Laurel?
They have a lot on their plate. We wish them luck. Thank you, Blair. In the Washington legislature today, 2 Democratic lawmakers introduced bills to stop rent gouging. They say the bills would not only prevent excessive rent increases, but also set guidelines. One would cap rent increases at 7%.
In the last year, I've talked to constituents in Eastern Washington, all across, up and down the I-5 corridor, Puget Sound, about rent increases they have increased that are unimaginable to me. 50%, 70%, 100%, hundreds and sometimes thousands of dollars a month.
The Washington Low Income Housing Alliance says Washington's average rent is nearly $1,900 a month. Another bill would also prohibit excessive fees when people move into a new apartment or a home. State lawmakers say tackling the housing crisis is a top priority this legislative session in Washington. Now a follow-up to a Call Kyle investigation into predatory towing. Today, the Oregon Attorney General filed a lawsuit against one of the state's largest towing companies. Investigative reporter Kylie Boshi has been looking into this issue for years. Kyle, what's this latest development?
Laura, Oregon's Attorney General has taken action before going after towing operations, but this is unusual. She's actually suing Retriever Towing. The lawsuit was filed in Multnomah County this morning. The complaint alleges that Retriever illegally towed vehicles from parking lots without signed authorization from the property owner. That's required. In 2017, the state legislature passed towing reforms to crack down on so-called predatory towing. The lawsuit claims many of the victims are out hundreds of dollars or have lost their vehicles at auction due to illegal towing. The AG's office opened its investigation into Retriever in 2018. Since then, the state has received roughly 260 complaints about the tow company. The AG's office says over the past 20 years, nearly a quarter of all towing complaints it's received involved Retriever. Now, we highlighted the company and its many complaints back in 2017. At the time, the company's boss felt the industry was better off with self-regulation and didn't need reforms.
Most of the time, most bureaucrats don't understand towing.
Again, that interview was from our investigation back in 2017. I tried to reach Retriever today for comment along with their attorney, but never did hear back.
Thank you, Kyle. Developing tonight, it is a disturbing story out of Washington and a video showing a man who appears to try to abduct a barista in a coffee shop drive-thru. This happened in Auburn in the Seattle area. Police released the surveillance video in hopes of catching the man, and the effort seems to have paid off. Here's Natalie Swaby with our sister station in Seattle.
Monday, just after 5 a.m. in Auburn, security cameras show a man in a truck at a coffee stand. Police say he appears to grab a hold of the barista and attempt to use a zip-tying device as he pulls her toward the drive-thru window. She fights back, and before he drives off, the camera captures a clear view of a tattoo on his arm and a side profile of his face. Kelly Jackson works at a different coffee stand near Auburn, and she saw the video after it was released on social media.
The Auburn Police Department, yep. She's obviously exchanging money, giving him back his change for his drink, and then trying to grab at her. It's absolutely terrifying, scary. When these things happen, you know, it puts you a little bit unnerving.
About 14 hours after police released the video, there was this result.
I just got a text message saying that the suspect is in custody, so we have made an arrest.
Colby Crossley with the Auburn Police Department says as the images circulated, the calls started to come in.
The community played an absolutely major role.
Natalie Swaby reporting. As you heard there at the end, police have made an arrest. We're still working to learn more about who the suspect is.